Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to start with Mr. Urban. Sir, why do you think the cartels purchase chemicals necessary for the production of fentanyl from China?
There's obviously a budding relationship there, and there's an ease to get them, as well as there's a tremendous amount of chemical companies in China that produce the precursors that they need.
That's a pretty long trip from China to Mexico, isn't it, sir? Doesn't that increase costs, shipment costs?
Sure, it certainly would increase shipping costs, but again, it's obvious that they are successful in acquiring the precursors from China, so they continue to do it.
Thank you. In a communist-run country like China, you would think that they would be able to crack down if they wanted to on the supply that's coming over and killing so many Americans. Would you agree with that? Or maybe do a better job of cracking down?
I believe they can, yes.
Sir, have you ever read the book Unrestricted Warfare?
I have.
What about anybody else on the panel? Mr. Farah, have you read Unrestricted Warfare? Ms. Maldonado? No. Sir, on the end? It was written and published in 1999, authored by 2 PLA senior colonels, and it talks about China's plan to, dominate and take out the United States of America using economic warfare, cyber warfare, elite capture, corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, asymmetric warfare on almost every aspect of our social, economic, and political life. Basically, take out the United States of America without firing a shot if possible. Does that sound familiar to anybody on the panel? Does that sound like something you're seeing in the headlines, Mr. Urban?
I mean, certainly they're finding ways to undermine various aspects of our country. In terms of my investigative efforts when I was with DEA, those investigative efforts took place outside of mainland China.
Now, obviously, this is a Homeland Security Committee, and we're talking about border security. Reading that list and just knowing a little bit about the Chinese Communist Party, do you think it's feasible that they might use fentanyl and the ingredients for deadly drugs to kill our own citizens?
Again, in terms of my investigative efforts, I did not tie it back to mainland China and the CCP there. In terms of the question itself, is it feasible?
Yeah.
I guess it is feasible.
But you would acknowledge that ingredients are coming from China, right?
Oh, I certainly, they are coming. Precursor chemicals are coming from China to Mexico.
Thank you. Ms. Maldonado, you were talking about the cartels, how effective they are, how powerful they've become. And I think we can all acknowledge that. But I want to ask you a question. Do you think that that's what initiated this surge that we're seeing on the southern border? What do you think the cause of what we're seeing on the southern border? What do you think initiated that surge that we're seeing right now is?
The surge of immigrants?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of reasons. Actually, I was just in Juarez about 3 weeks ago on the Mexican side of the border, and I was able to talk to a lot of the migrants that were there. And I think a big part of it is they're hearing that the border is open, right? And so people are traveling. I mean, there was people there that traveled 8,000 miles with no water, no medical care, because they're hearing that the border is open. They're hearing that their family members, their friends got in, and that's what's taking them straight into the hands of the cartels. And so I think a lot of it is word of mouth. They're hearing that there's an open invitation to come into the U.S., and unfortunately, they're having to make it through incredibly difficult and horrendous circumstances to try and get here.
Yes, ma'am. Do you think something that might contribute to that is when the future president of the United States says in a 2019 Democratic primary debate, the United States is a country that tells people struggling under oppression or poor conditions, you should come, quote, you should come. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We are a nation that says you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come. Do you think that that's something that might initiate some of the surge that we're seeing?
I think absolutely. I think that that's what we're seeing happen. And it hasn't always been the same problem that it is now. It's a problem that's continuously increasing, and it's being orchestrated by the cartels because they're making more money than ever. But I think that a different policy it would have different results. And that's why we need to look at new avenues that haven't been thought of before.
Well, I agree. And I also think we should go back to some of the policies that were working in the past. My time is up. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.